All right, you guys. So somebody sent me a clip of an interview of Joe Rogan with Seth Dillion, who works at the Babylon Bee, and wow, I was intrigued. So I went to go watch the longer version, and I figured, you know what? Why don't I just play it and watch it with you guys, and I'll give my thoughts along the way. Oh, and I should say, my assumption is there's probably some parts that might go on or might be repetitive, and so I'll clean all of those out in editing. I'm just going to keep the good stuff for you guys. All right, let's go.
This idea that you can't have someone who is a Christian who talks to another person who's a Christian, and maybe they were on the fence about something, and you convince them to have a child, and it's the best decision they have ever made in their life, and they love their kids so much they couldn't imagine they were thinking about getting an abortion. Right. That's real too. Yeah. That's real too. There's also women who have been raped who should not have to carry some rapist baby.
Okay, a couple of things here. So now first off, when he talks about rape, rape is one of the most evil and disgusting acts that a person can commit, period. I can completely empathize with the people who's been raped, and I emotionally understand that point. I really do. But it kind of threw me back a little bit when he referred to the child as a rapist baby, I think he said. It was actually just a couple of weeks ago I found out that somebody that I know was conceived by a rape. And when he told me this, he was talking about how thankful he was to be here. And so when I think about the term rapist baby, it just sounds derogatory to me, but maybe that's just me. Let's keep going.
And who have been sexually assaulted before the age of 14.
There's also, hold on though.
But hold on, don't stop me.
Okay.
That's real too. And we all have to agree. We have to agree on both of those things.
Okay, I wouldn't say that we have to agree, but I do appreciate Joe's willingness to actually show both sides somewhat so that way we could have a more nuanced discussion about this. These topics are hard for people to have a nuanced discussion about, so I appreciate that about him. But honestly, if you think about it, it seems to me like this conversation is constantly being dominated by this factor of rape and incest when, according to an article I read recently from USA Today, it's like only 1% of abortions come from rape and only 0.5% come from incest. So it's like if the vast majority of the reasons have nothing to do with rape and incest, why does that become the major talking point when it comes to this issue? That is not what we're talking about here when we're talking about the majority of the cases when it comes to abortion. It's just not. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me that that's become the talking point. That's the big deal these days.
There are also, though, I'm not going to argue with you on that point, but I will say there are people who have been born of rape and are alive right now and are pro-life, and they go around speaking, talking about how I had a right to live, and they will go out there and make an argument, a pro-life case, and they're born of a rape.
You don't have a right to tell a 14-year-old girl she has to carry a rapist baby.
I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that's real too. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Do you
understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the right to tell my 14-year-old daughter she has to carry her rapist baby. You understand that?
To look that woman in the eye who was born of a rape.
Do you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child. If a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say that they have to carry that baby?
Okay, to stop real quick, it looks like Joe is getting a little bit more worked up about this one, and I understand the emotional force behind what he's saying. He's basically saying that it would scar them too much to force them to be able to go along with the pregnancy. But my first kind of thought here would be like, who's to say that it wouldn't scar them emotionally to actually go through with an abortion? Or maybe when they get older, they might come to believe that what they terminated was human life, and then that scars them a lot worse. I mean, to me, it just seems kind of narrow and like he's not really considering the other side of the equation, but let's keep going.
I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think murder is an answer to, I don't think murder fixes a rape.
What if we're talking about an abortion when the fetus, like literally it's like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 days? What if she just turned positive just now? Positive for pregnancy?
Okay, first, positive for pregnancy. That makes it sound like it's like positive for COVID or something like that. Just weird language to me to use when you're talking about being pregnant. It just is like this kind of dehumanizing language to kind of just make it sound like it's not an actual person that we're talking about. Let's hear how Seth answers this question.
I would lay it out like this. I would say it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human life. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human life. Therefore, abortion is wrong. And I don't think any of the examples of like, oh, well, how developed is it? You know, can it think? Is it conscious? Can it dream? Can it feel pain?
So for you, it's the moment of conception.
I think that if it's a human life, a distinct human life, then I think it's wrong to end its life. And
so you think that once the conception happens, there's some sort of a miraculous event, like at the very moment, Like you could
Well, yeah, there is a miraculous event at conception. It's when the sperm and the egg meet, it miraculously creates a human life that has its own unique genetic DNA fingerprint. And its DNA is literally distinct from the mother and the father's DNA. That is a miraculous moment, in my opinion, but let's hear what he says.
Like you could literally get to the point where the sperm cracks the egg. If you could scoop that egg out right there, would that be abortion?
Well, I mean, at some point you're going to have to say there was a magic moment that happened because you believe that we eventually become valuable humans, right?
Well, listen,
where's the moment where you think the magic happens?
Let me tell you my...
Great question. That's a question I would have asked. I would have said, when is the moment that you think that the magic thing happens? What Seth did there was he took the rhetoric that he was using and he turned it against Joe, so it flipped him on its head. Great move. Now, let's see how Joe answers this question.
Let me tell you my perspective on this because I've said this multiple times, but it bears repeating. I think abortion is a very human issue in that we're messy, and it's a very messy issue. It's complicated. Bill Burr has a very good bit about it in his last comedy special, where he says, "I agree with you."
Okay, hate pausing, but doesn't seem like he's answering the question. But give him the benefit of a doubt. Let's keep listening.
Right to choose, but it's also killing a baby,
right?
And it's a very well.
I like that bit. It's a good bit.
Fantastic.
He's talking about the oven, baking something in the oven. Yeah.
When you talk about like someone who's at 6 months or 9 months, that gets crazy. That's like you're literally killing a baby. You're killing a baby that could exist outside the womb.
What if rape produced it and it's 8 months old in the womb?
It's a good question. That's also what makes it a very, very messy conversation.
It's tough.
This is this weird place where it's like, okay, that's a baby.
Yeah.
This is not like a clump of cells. That's an actual baby.
Right.
Okay, hold on. Now, he just said a clump of cells, and this never made sense to me because if you refer to a baby as just being a clump of cells, well, that's technically right, but we're all just a clump of cells. Joe Rogan is just technically a clump of cells. So that logic literally just never made sense to me. The issue is not being a clump of cells because all of us are just a more developed clump of cells. Just like a toddler is more developed than an infant and an adolescent is more developed than a toddler and so on. What we're talking about is stages of development, not comparing a clump of cells to a non-clump of cells or something like that.
This is not like a clump of cells. That's an actual baby.
Right.
That's why it makes it such a crazy issue.
I mean, when you start talking about harmful misinformation, I mean, I'm as you can tell, I'm pro-life.
Yes.
And when we start talking about harmful misinformation and the types of things that are considered, like that I say or that we tweet or the jokes that we make that are considered harmful misinformation, I'm like, well, what about calling that baby a clump of cells? I think that's harmful misinformation because then you're encouraging people to kill it like it's nothing when it's actually a human life. It's a developing human life. I think abortion is healthcare the way that rape is lovemaking. If we want to use rape as an example, I think they're opposites. And it's like these are euphemisms that we use. We use the word healthcare. We're talking about a procedure that ends an innocent human life, and we're calling it healthcare. That's like calling rape lovemaking.
And this is why it's such a human issue, because I see what you're saying.
Okay, good. That's another great example of Joe Rogan conceding and acknowledging good points made by somebody who completely disagrees with them. That is something that's rare and something that I think should be encouraged. So kudos to Joe on that one.
And I think that if Christianity had been any other religion other than, Christianity is the most mocked religion. Like we want to look at religions with respect and dignity.
Okay, this is ironic because if you've been following my channel for a while, Joe mocked Christianity a lot in the past. So I'm not really sure how this came about, and I can't tell if he's dodging the question or what, but I'm here for it. So I'm going to keep listening.
Whether it's Islam or Hinduism, we look at those with respect and dignity. And even if they have practices that we don't agree with, we sort of give them this leeway that it's a part of their religion.
Yeah,
Christianity is the most openly, easily mocked of all religions. It's the most derived. For whatever reason,
well, we tolerate a lot of it. Plus, we also, I think one of the things that was refreshing to me about the Babylon Bee before I got involved in the Bee, when I saw it for the first time, I liked the self-deprecating humor. I liked the willingness to go after our own and make fun of ourselves.
That's
'Cause I
important.
think that's really healthy.
Okay, it seems like they're going for a while, but my overall thoughts on this is that I think that Seth did a really good job in handling this topic and responding to Joe's objections as well. I also really appreciated the fact that Joe would have him on there and they could have this discussion where they passionately disagree, but they're still able to be able to have the conversation and to not let it get all weird and super bad towards the end as well. But when it comes to that last topic where he's talking about Christianity being mocked is one that seems to be coming up a lot lately for me. So I've done a couple videos on it recently. So go ahead and watch this one to hear some of my thoughts about why Christianity doesn't retaliate like some of these other religions and if that makes Christianity weak or not. Go ahead and click here and I'll see you over there. But the next time that you hear Joe Rogan saying,
This is not like a clump of cells. That's an actual baby.
Right.
what are you going to say? What do you mean?